Hey yo, welcome back to another episode of the most authentic and nuanced holistic health and fitness podcast, hosted by your favorite crunchy strength and conditioning coach. I'm Kelsey Moore, and today's company is Shelby Flatt. Shelby is my cousin. She has a background and a career in caring and keeping of chickens. She has owned and operated her own egg business, has a bachelor's degree in animal science from Oklahoma State, and now works her dream job as an ag retail rep, specializing in all natural backyard chicken product line in farm and feed stores across the country. Thanks for being on the podcast today, Shelby.
Thanks for having me, Kels. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just going to take it back to 2019. I already said you're my cousin. You are my first cousin. So very close. Our moms are sisters. In 2019, you and well, let me back up even more. You and at the time, your boyfriend, Colby, which is now your husband,
Yep.
tried to get into the lottery to get Half Dome tickets so
Yes.
you could climb Half
So I
Dome.
could climb Half Dome. Yep.
And you were trying and trying and trying, and I was
For like
home.
weeks.
Yeah, you were trying
Yeah.
for weeks. My sister was having her wedding that weekend, so I was home, and you were like, Kels, like, try to get in the lottery with us. We've been trying forever. I put it in one time for 3 tickets. I get it. We
And you
go.
got it.
We climbed Half Dome.
What the heck? The next night. And you had no clothes. You had no hiking shoes.
I had nothing.
You had to go buy shoes and
Oh my gosh. I know, which like a lot of my audience now has been obviously following like my road to my 50-mile race. Thinking about hiking Half Dome, that 23-mile round trip hike in like Dick's Sporting Goods tennis shoes and like remember we like I think we had like 2 hours of sleep after my sister's wedding.
We went from the wedding, went home, ate a bunch of pasta, slept for like 2 hours. I think we left at like 2 or 2:30 a.m.
That's right. Yeah.
To get on the trail by like 4 a.m.
Oh my gosh.
And we had our headlamps.
Oh, you're right. We had our headlamps. And while I absolutely love and adore you because I grew up with you, but it was so much fun to be with Colby. And you and Colby have grown up in the ag central part of not only California, but obviously like in America. It's pretty phenomenal where we grew up. So you were my closest connection to being farmers. And I'm going to ask you a little bit about your FFA background in a sec. But in 2019, that was like a really pivotal moment for me because that's when I started discovering like, what is conventional ag? What is industrial ag? What are my questions surrounding grass fed? What is organic? Like, I just remember, pestering you and Colby the whole drive to and from Half Dome with all my questions. Look how far we've come.
Yep.
Now we're podcasting.
I know.
But so anyways, you were part of like that initial stage of me like learning and just asking questions. And I would love for you to take the first couple of minutes, give us your background in chicken raising, your ag background, FFA, all of it. Just tell us the deets.
Okay. So I grew up on our family's farm in La Grande, California, kind of outside of Merced. Variety of different crops, almonds, clementines, winter oats, things like that. And from a very, very young age, I always knew that I was into ag. I was into animals. I was the one that was on the playground at school bringing stink bugs and ladybugs home, keeping spiders and lizards in my room as a pet. I was just into it all. Well, by the time I turned 9, I was super excited to join 4-H. You can join 4-H when you turn 9 years old or you're in 4th grade. And I really was excited about showing an animal. Well, my parents were like, no way you're getting a big animal. You can start with a bunny or a chicken. I was like, great. So I started with a bunny. I loved my bunny, took great care of my bunny, showed that. And then the next year, I think, is when I started chickens. So I did bunnies and chickens. I started like one chicken, my little show chicken. And that's kind of where it all started. Did that throughout junior high. And then by the time I got to high school, I joined FFA, which is connected to your high school. And then through that, I got to show sheep and goats and did a variety of other competitions and projects and events through FFA as well. And then that kind of led me into looking into different colleges. I always knew about Oklahoma State. They were very involved in California FFA. knew of them going throughout high school. My senior year came around. They invited me out that fall to come to a future prospective student leadership conference, something like that with the ag department. Flew out there, absolutely loved it, was ready to get out and try something new. And they have an awesome animal science department as well, one of the best in the country. So that's kind of a little bit of how the bunny and the chicken grew into my college career and where I am now.
Yeah. So I remember specifically during the Half Dome time frame, I think you were a vegetarian. Is that true?
Okay, I was a vegetarian for a while, but I it was more when I was younger.
Okay.
Like I said, I was super into animals and
Hmm.
insects and all of that and did not want to eat them.
Hmm.
But in high school, I've always had just health issues, GI issues, and at one point in high school, my doctor was like, "No, you gotta start eating meat." And so I remember my mom and I went after a doctor's appointment one day. I think it was like Cheesecake Factory or something, and I had like a French dip sandwich, and I was like, I forgot how good this actually tasted.
Yeah.
So I've been eating meat since then, but yeah, you're right, there was a period of time where I was like, no way. These are my friends, these are my animals, I'm not eating them. But yeah, that phase is long
Gone.
gone. Yeah.
I think I remember,
Mhm.
maybe it could have just been like our grandma's interpretation, but I remember at some point, I think you said it, or maybe your mom, where it's like you didn't want to eat anything with a face. I think I remember that
Yeah,
phrase.
that sounds about right.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I
Yeah.
feel like that fits.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you did a show chicken, and I'm assuming that's a meat chicken, correct? Like, I'm gonna ask you in a little bit, like,
Okay.
what's the difference between a meat chicken and an egg laying hen? Like, I have
Actually, it's not.
specific. It's not. Okay,
No.
tell me more about that.
So the show chickens, they're called bantams for the most part. And so they're heritage breeds, they're fancier breeds, they're small little chickens. And so like as a little 9 or 10-year-old, you have a little hand, you need a little chicken that can fit in it. The way it works is, you bring your chicken to the fair, you give it a bath, you blow dry it, you make them all nice and pretty. At the fair, you stand in front of this table with a judge, you do, showmanship, you make it walk, you answer questions about chickens, but it is a little tiny chicken, and it's some type of special breed usually. You can also show meat birds. I never did that because I was never really into eating my chickens. And then you can also show eggs. So there's egg laying chickens, there's meat chickens, there's show chickens. Colby's over there laughing at me. Did you ever show meat chickens? Okay, so Colby showed meat chickens, I guess,
Okay.
because that's how you make money, he says.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
But there is a difference. There's different categories for sure.
Okay, which
Yeah.
we'll totally dive down. I have 12,000 questions for you.
Okay.
Um, but talk about the transition from OSU, the ag department, and your current job. If you tell us like as much or as little as you want on what you do now.
Yeah. Okay, so at OSU, I majored in animal science with a emphasis in livestock merchandising. So I didn't really take a ton of poultry classes there. There's a big emphasis on beef cattle, some sheep and goats, some companion animal out there. So did all of those classes, did all my production courses, and then had an internship my last summer of college with Merck Animal Health on their retail team. I absolutely loved that. Traveled all over, did cooler resets for the livestock vaccines at tons of different stores across the country. Well, I was set to graduate a semester early, and they didn't have a full-time position at that time. So I'm scrambling trying to, find something. Um, Graduated, got married, found a job for the meantime, and then one day I get this call from a lady as I'm still actively searching out, new jobs that would be a better fit long term. I get a call from this lady. I hear a voicemail, and she goes, "Hi, I'm, so and so with this company. Your supervisor from your internship last summer gave me your contact information. Don't know if you'd be interested in a retail line for backyard chickens at all. Not sure if that's up your alley. It's not really up mine, but if you want to hear more, I'd love to talk with you. Give me a call back." And at this point, I had a few other, offers and things in process, and I was kind of just like, I don't know. I've never heard of this company. I don't know about this job. Like, I don't really know if I want to get back into chickens. I really had a great experience in my classes with like my beef classes, my production classes. I was kind of thinking maybe I want to go more that way. Well, that night I look into the company, research it, and I was like, wait a second, this actually looks awesome. So it's an all natural company. They do a lot of work on the commercial side of things, on integrator side of things. But my job is very different than anyone else at the company. So it's still the same natural technologies, big on essential oils, big on prebiotic fibers, uh, different technologies for the rumen. But this is specific for backyard chickens, this job that she has, and it's only in retail stores. So I'm not going out to big producers, I'm not going out to farms, I'm just going to stores. So, like Tractor Supply, feed and farm stores that are independently owned locally. I'm not sure what stores that you have on the East Coast. I cover the West Coast, but Atwoods, things like that. And so I send her my resume and I give her a call back and we talk and we have like an hour long interview and she shows me the line and talks about the company. And I knew right then, I was like, this is like the perfect job for me. And so she calls a few of my references and all of them told her the same thing. Like, Shelby knows so much about chickens. Like, there is no one more perfect for this role
That's
than
amazing.
Shelby. And she didn't even know that. She's just like, well, okay, I guess you have the job if you want it. And so I started in May and it's been the best thing. It's an awesome company, great line, just good overall thing that happened. So,
That's amazing.
yep.
Good. I'm so happy for you. I mean,
Yeah,
you're the chicken girl,
I
like
know.
through and
Like,
through.
who
Like,
would have thought?
who would have thought? I mean, it's a perfect
Who would
spot
have
for you.
thought? So it is.
Okay,
It
so
really is.
you are working then on a retail line I mean, you're working for a company that does a retail line that
Yep.
specializes in like a small family owning backyard chickens, right?
Yes.
Rather than like the industrial um chicken, the conventional way of producing chickens, like for
Yep.
Tyson, for example, or something like that,
Yep.
right? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So, can you walk us through just a little bit between meat chickens, egg laying hens? One of my biggest questions, I ask this like, which I know in Thanksgiving, like we're eating turkey, but I ask all the time, are we eating both male and female chickens and male and female turkeys? Everyone says she, like the bird, like chicken breasts, like it's a female. But I'm like, are we also eating male chickens? Like I have so many questions.
Okay.
Okay, so can you kind of break that down a little bit?
Yep. So meat birds are a whole other game than your laying birds. I mean, you can order them as day old chicks. I've done that before. I order them as day old chicks, raise them. You raise them for 6 to 8 weeks and then they're done. And they grow very, very fast. You have to butcher them at that time or else they're just going to get so big and so fat and they're going to break their legs and die on their own. And you don't want that. Um, a lot of people use Cornish cross breeds
Mm-hmm.
and especially homesteaders, people that have just a few acres and are raising just a few birds for their family. Cornish cross is a very popular breed for that. Usually the Cornish cross are sold as a straight run, meaning they're not sexed, they're males and females together as day old chicks. You can order just pullets if you want, which are the female birds, but since they're only going to be getting to 6 or 8 weeks old,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't really matter, honestly. The males might get a little bit bigger, but it's not going to be like a significant difference that you're probably going to be able to taste. So you can use male or female. They're not getting to a level of maturity where they're going to be laying eggs. So you don't have to really worry about that. They're not going to be mating or anything. They're literally going to be like teenage hens by the time they're ready for harvest. You feed them a starter, crumble, mash, pellet, do a grower, and then you finish them on a finisher ration. Literally super easy, super quick. Like I said, I did do it. I think I had like 6 or 8 birds. It was a traumatizing, horrible experience
Mm-hmm.
for me. I don't know if I could ever do it again. Colby might be able to do it for me next time.
Mm-hmm.
But some people, they do it and they love it and they have no problem. I probably just didn't have the correct equipment and I was just in high school and thought I could do this awesome project. And I think your dad was one of the ones actually that was like, oh yeah, like raise me a meat bird so I can eat it. And I think I gave him one like in a Ziploc bag from the freezer. And
That
I
is
don't
so
know.
funny.
It was just a project like I did once, tried it, not my thing. It's a whole other game for sure. But it's becoming very popular.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it's super quick to do. It's not a huge turnaround time, or it is a huge turnaround time. So yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure you've already seen it at this point, but I partnered with a local regenerative farm, like
Yes.
kind of near me,
Yes.
Harris
I
Home
see
Place Farm.
those.
They're
Yes.
amazing. And I went out and
Yeah.
visited them. They do the tractor, or I'm sorry, the tractor trailers, the chicken trailers,
Yep.
where they pull them around and they
Mm-hmm.
use like the chicken manure to fertilize their field. It's amazing. But I totally get what you're saying. Like they grow really fast and I think they do, what's it called, not butcher but process, I think quarterly, I want to say.
Okay.
And they invited me out to their next one, which I believe is like mid-March. And I have said this, like I have never like intentionally killed an animal, so
Yeah.
I think that would be really difficult for me, but I know at some point, like that is kind of the process of learning traditional cooking skills, is learning how to
Yeah.
hunt and to break down meat,
Yeah.
correctly. So it's part of the process for me. I'm
It
not there
is.
yet, but
No,
um
it'll be good for you to watch, and they'll do it the right way, and they're pros, and they can probably do it super fast. I mean, some people
mhm.
can do it like within seconds, and it's done. It
Yeah,
was hard for me because I was, like
you're a
crying
teenager,
and
you're a
trying to
teenage
like,
girl.
oh, I don't want to do this, but I need to do it.
Yeah,
It was
that's a little
terrible.
traumatizing. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's Meatbird. So your
Yep.
retail line that you work on now, is it just for egg laying hens?
You can use it on
On any?
any species of poultry. I mean, you can do it on meat birds, egg-laying hens,
Okay.
day-old chicks, peacocks, game birds, turkeys, guineas, anything. Yeah.
Okay. So when you want to start having chickens at your house, how many do you have to get? What are the essential things?
Yep.
How much does it cost? Start there. Start from the
Okay.
ground.
So it can be whatever you want it to be, honestly. If you live in a suburban area, a lot of city limits now have rules and laws in place that actually allow you to have four, six, eight hens, which is really cool. So if you live in town and you have a backyard, you can have a coop and just a few birds, and that's super fun. Or if live out on land and you have some more space to have 50 birds if you want, but you can do that too. You need, I mean, chicks can't be alone. You need to have at least two or three. Probably four is a better number. And you get them at your feed store. You can order them online. They come in the mail. You pick them up at the post office, and you're good to go. So as long as you have, a coop, and what's in a coop, you need to have an area for them that is enclosed either with, I think it's called like hardware cloth or hardware mesh. Chicken wire or something like that, that it protects them. It needs to have a roof so hawks and things like that can't see them and get down
Hmm.
in them. It needs to have nesting boxes, so a little area that's big enough to fit probably twice the size of the bird, and then you can lift from the outside to collect their eggs. That has pine shavings in it, whatever type of bedding that you're deciding to use. And then it also needs to have roofs up top, which is just, you can use a piece of wood that is nailed in, screwed in, that they can just perch on and sit on at nighttime when they sleep. That's just how they like to sleep. And then, like, for sure, an enclosed area of the coop too that blocks them from cold, wind, things like that. Um, People use pine shavings, wood shavings, straw. I've seen people use, I think it's called like construction sand. That works too. You just have to be careful if you're using hay or straw because it can get moldy. If you use pine shavings or wood shavings, you can use the deep litter method where you're not having to change it out so often, which is nice. Straw is really nice to keep them warm in the winter, though, and cooler in the summer. Um, and then what else do you need for the actual baby chicks? You need a waterer that they can't get in, jump around and get poop and get dirt and get shavings in. Super easy to find. A feeder. You start them on a starter crumble. There's medicated and non-medicated. It's always good to have them started on electrolytes, vitamins, prebiotics, and probiotics in their water. Gives them an immune boost, helps with things like pasty butt, which is when they get poop stuck to their vent. and it gets them really sick because it like hardens on there and they can't get it off and then they die. So things like that just help get them off to a good start. That's kind of all you need from the beginning. But as they get older, you should provide a calcium source. So whether that's crushed up baked eggshells that you're giving back to them, whether it's oyster shells, things like that. It's always good to add something to their water that has the extra vitamins, probiotics, calcium in it, oregano in it, things like that.
Mhm.
Um, and then you can go all out. I mean, I've seen some chicken coops that have radios in there. I've seen curtains in there. I've seen portraits in there, mirrors in there. I mean, you can make it as simple or as awesome as you want. The possibilities are endless. So,
Okay, so one, how often are you expecting to get an egg from one
mhm.
chicken, and how old do they get? How long do you keep them?
So it really depends on the breed. So, like we talked about, there's like the breeds that I showed when I was younger that are small bantam breeds. Then there's, your heritage breeds. Then there's breeds that are dual purpose and breeds that are genetically bred to be an egg laying machine that lay an egg every single day. Some chickens might even lay 2 eggs a day every once in a while. Generally speaking, they should be laying an egg about every 24 hours. So whether that means once a day, you might get it every other day. Sometimes you'll get two in a day if it's something crazy going on. I think the average number of eggs that a chicken lays a year is like 300 eggs a year. They also need at least 10 hours of sunlight a day. So when the days start getting shorter, their light is not so much, that might affect just their egg laying process. Some people do like to put an artificial light in the coop just to keep the day length the same throughout the year. You can do that. You can give them a break. If you do that, you should be prepared that maybe they won't lay for as many years as a chicken that doesn't have the artificial light through the winter. And that also goes with the different types of breeds. So typically, a chicken will lay anywhere from 5 to 10 years. But some of your smaller breeds that are bantams or silkies or Polish, they lay an egg about this big every couple of days, every couple of weeks. So it really just depends on
Mm-hmm.
what you want. Some people love to have the super cute, funky, crazy looking chickens that don't really lay as many eggs and they're super tiny. That's fine. And then some people, what, I just want to have my Rhode Island Reds and my Barred Rocks that are going to give me a nice brown egg every single day, and that's fine too.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So my backyard, I don't have a fenced in backyard, but
Okay.
this is an adventure I have not started on because I just have so many questions. But I'm just like looking at my own personal backyard, which is like I have a decent amount. I have like an acre. It's not fenced in. A lot of it is sand. And then when I get to the wood line, it's just forest, like normal
Okay.
forest. So I'm thinking like for some, because in my area, Moore County, a lot of people listen to this podcast that are like in my area, and it's all pretty much the same. It's all sand,
Okay.
and then like either that or forest. So I'm thinking if someone in this area or had a similar backyard setup, they would have to build a coop that had a roof. But if I were to let them out, like during the day for their 10 hours of light, they would also have to have, like, they would have to be fenced in, like, as a secondary fence, correct?
Yes. So some people do raise chickens, in the forest, but that's not to say they just let them go out there and, oh, good luck. We'll go look around and
Mm-hmm.
find the eggs. And, it's a whole different type of process. So the people that do that, what I've mostly seen is they have a dog out there with the chickens that are
Mm-hmm.
watching over them. They have some type of fence that's still enclosing them into the forest. The the chickens are either meat birds that are super heavy and can't fly, or they might have their wings clipped to an extent where they're not like flying super high and they you can never get them down. Because if they're spending the night up in the tree and a hawk comes or a coyote
Mm-hmm.
comes or a raccoon comes in the night, there's nothing you can do. I would say that you need to have the forest be super dense for younger chickens. So if the chickens are still babies and the forest is super just like sporadic and scattered and you can see them through the trees from above, that's not safe for them. But if it is a super dense forest, that could be a super cool setup. Where my chickens were back home growing up, they were fenced in an area, and there were super tall trees all around that area, and there were some birds that would literally fly up in the tree. But the thing is, they're natural, roosters. They want to roost at night. So when the sun goes down, they're either going to be in the coop or they're going to be up in the tree roosting. And there's been times where the chickens were up in the tree and we're like throwing things, like trying to get them to come down, because I know if I leave them out all night, they're going to be just like feathers in the morning. And
Yeah.
you don't want that, especially if you only have a few and, half of them go up into a tree to spend the night. You don't want to lose them. But it is possible, and if they're super good at coming into the coop at night, that's great. If your coop has an automatic door that opens and closes with the sunrise and sunset, you should just double check that to make sure they're all in when the door is closed, and then just go around and try to find them. Um, but yeah, you can just lock them up at night and let them free range in your backyard and in the forest. That's good for them. Um, but just be wary that you have to get them back in
Yeah.
at night.
Yeah, that was kind of my thing that I was really thinking about, because the reason why I asked that is because I follow Strong Sisters on Instagram.
Okay.
They own Angel Acres out in Michigan, and they
Okay.
do that type of forest-like foraging with their birds, and they have livestock guardian dogs out there with them.
Mm-hmm.
They have a ton of birds, so I just was like, if I know innately birds are omnivores, right? Like they want to eat the bugs and insects on the ground, then in their best and most, congruent habitat, they would be able to do that, which would be, in my personal setup, it would be more of the forest rather than just like the backyard full of sand, because
Right.
I don't have a ton of like bugs right there.
Yeah.
But then, I'm running into kind of the predator situation,
Yeah.
because we have coyotes and hawks and things. And so I just have to kind of think through that. But my next question, just because my brain is just going, could, this may be like a ridiculous question, but can you talk to us? Like, these are obviously egg laying hens, so they're females. Do I need a rooster? I'm assuming I don't need a male rooster, because that's kind of the point, is that an egg is an unfertilized, it's unfertilized.
Yes.
Okay, so can you talk
Okay.
about like the birds and
Yep.
the bees with that? Okay.
Yes. Okay, so a chicken will lay an egg no matter what. If there's a rooster present or not, she's still going to lay an egg.
Okay.
So think of it like any other animal or species. They're still going to have the same egg laying cycle or egg producing cycle, whether it's fertilized or not. Basically, if you want fertilized eggs, you have to have a rooster. Um, they, mate. The egg drops, it fertilizes the eggs inside of the hen, and then the shell goes on. Then she lays it and she sits on it for 21 days.
Got it. Okay.
So it will still lay an egg. Fertilized eggs are still safe to eat. You can candle them and see a little chick inside if you're trying to hatch them. You can look at the different stages each day. You can still eat it as long as you're getting them every day or every couple days and putting them in the refrigerator. Um, a lot of people do like to put them on their counter and not refrigerate eggs. That's fine if they're not fertilized. If they are fertilized, they're probably going to be fine too, but I would just be extra careful making sure that
Hmm.
check it before you crack it open into your fried rice or your omelet or something.
Yeah, you're gonna
It's
have a
not
little
like a
little
little,
embryo in
yeah,
there.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So,
So the reason why, we have to refrigerate eggs from the store is because they've been washed. And they've been washed, like can you talk about like the film that's on the outside?
yes. So eggs are laid with a coat called bloom on them, and that basically seals the egg. So eggshells are super porous. Things can get in there, but the bloom coat on it actually protects it. People can keep their eggs on the counter for a decent amount of time, for pretty long. But they're going to be covered in, feathers, shavings, poop sometimes. So some people, they just want to wash them. They don't want to look at that on their counter and put them in the fridge. That's fine too. But you're right, the eggs from the grocery store have been washed. The bloom is no longer on them, meaning the shell is super porous. Things can get in there. That's why they're washed. And then the eggs at the store also, they can be 2 or 3 months old by the time you get them.
Hmm.
So that's partly why they wash it too.
Yeah, I had heard that, even with some of the better brands, that the eggs that you get from the store are going to be like 3 months old. And it's like,
Mm-hmm. I know.
yeah.
Like, they're probably fine. They're safe for you to
Yeah.
eat. There's nothing wrong with them. But if you have the option and you want to have fresh eggs, like why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Why
Okay.
not? Yeah.
Okay. Last question about the rooster. Is the main
Okay.
reason why people get a rooster is for protection? Is it because they're like kind of, they can be kind of mean? Or like, why, like, is there any advantage to having a rooster?
So I don't know how much I've heard of roosters being used as protection, but when you go buy chicks at the feed store or they're coming in the mail or whatever, when their sex says pullets, it's only a 90% chance that they're pullets, which is the female. So there's
Okay.
still a chance that if you're getting a ton of chicks that there might just happen to be a rooster. They can't just like 100% guarantee every single chick every single time. So sometimes that happens and then you just love, you love all your chicks and you raise them from day old little things and they don't want to get rid of it. Sometimes people just want to have a rooster. They want to have baby chicks. They want their eggs to be fertilized. And then, like I said, sometimes you just end up with one and you keep it. They can be mean to the hens though, so
Okay.
they can like rip out their feathers. They aren't always super nice to the hens. Some aren't, but most of the time they're not. So
I've
I don't
heard
know.
that like sometimes if you end up getting a rooster, they can like be a little bit mean, and if people get
Yeah,
fed up with them, then they turn them into a meat bird, then they eat them.
yeah. And like they don't make the best meat birds either because they're super tough, they're super stringy. There's not a lot of meat to them if they're just an
Yeah.
egg laying breed,
And they're
But
gonna
yeah.
obviously be well past that 8 week mark that you were
Yes.
saying. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Oh my gosh. Okay. So let's get into the hot topic of labels at the grocery store, which I'm sure that
Okay.
you have opinions about, and I'd love to just hear
Okay.
your opinion on it. So obviously, in the world that I'm living in where I don't have a ton of skin in the game, and also I've never worked in like big ag. But obviously, I work with Harris Home Place Farm. They're amazing, and they talk about we want pasture raised. Like that's usually what we're looking for. And so when you go to the grocery store, if you have to buy eggs from the grocery store, you see pasture raised, you see organic, you see free range, and you see cage free.
Hmm.
Normally, I believe. Um, so tell me your opinion of those labels.
Okay.
Would love to hear that.
So I my senior year, I think my junior or senior year of college, I did a lot of research into just the different types of eggs, the different nutritional value of each different egg. Because some people think, well, they might look different, but they're all the same nutritional value, so it really doesn't matter. And I mean, I do have a lot of experience in a lot of different sectors of the ag industry, so I get all sides of it most of the time. And the conventionally raised eggs, like you look at the pictures and like, if you're a person like me that you love animals, you're like,
Hmm.
poor birds. But at the same time, it's like with the world population growing, and there's this, whole thing going on how we're going to feed, all these people and how are we going to do it with farmland decreasing and all these things, like what do we do to feed all the people? So like in that sense, yes, the conventional eggs, like it's good that we have them because not everyone can afford to have chickens in their backyard and build a coop and have all these special things or spend $8 on a dozen of eggs that are pasture raised eggs.
Sure.
So it's good that we have it. It's a very different thing though because those birds, they live 2 to 3 years and they're born to be in those battery cages and they lay eggs and that's it.
Hmm.
Those eggs, if you crack one open next to a pasture raised egg, it's like, holy cow, it's crazy that you can see visually the difference. Sometimes those eggs might be smaller on the outside, sure. The eggshell color really does not matter, but the yolk can be smaller. It's more pale yellow. The actual white albumin of the egg is like watery and runny and it just goes everywhere. And then you crack an egg that your chicken in your backyard that runs around in the grass and eats bugs and everything laid, and that yolk is orange and golden and the albumin is thick and white, and it's a huge difference. So what does that mean? It kind of gets tricky in the gray areas of, well, what's a cage free egg, what's a free range egg, what's like an all natural egg,
Sure.
and you can look it up on the USDA site too. So I might need to go back and look, but cage free just means they're not in the battery cage. So you might look at that word and think, oh, like these chickens are cage free. They're living this beautiful life out on this farm eating grass all day. Not
Oh,
necessarily. It just means,
sorry to cut you off. Is the battery cage that you're talking about, is that the same as a CAFO? Is that the same thing? Do you know what a CAFO is?
yes,
CAFO?
yeah, you could consider it a CAFO.
Okay, sorry, keep going.
Um, no, you're good. Um, so cage free, basically, they're just in that barn running around, but they could very well just like be on top of each other, just crammed in there, but they're
Mm-hmm.
not in a cage. That's cage free. Free range, I want to say is the same as cage free, but they have a certain amount of time that they are allowed outside. Outside doesn't necessarily mean that they're out, on a pasture on this beautiful hilly green farm doing whatever they please either. So you have to be careful about that too. And then pasture raised, like your friends, it means that they are, raised out on a pasture. A lot of them are on the chicken tractor trailers that are, getting moved around. They go in there for protection at night. That's fine. You need to protect your flock. But for the most part, they're out eating bugs, grass, out on a pasture, kind of more like that picture that you would imagine, where some people
Mm-hmm.
might associate that with cage free, free range, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I need to clarify because I just realized it. The chickens that I saw at Harris Home Place Farm, the ones that are in the chicken tractors, those are going to be meat birds,
Birds, okay.
right? Okay, yeah, that's what I thought because I was like, kind of, I think originally I had mixed that up with egg laying hens, but the egg laying hens, at least for them, like they roam around during the day and then they go in their
Yeah.
coop and they go in
Yeah,
their
you
coop
can
every
do
night.
meat birds or laying hens, out on a pasture for sure.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Wow, that's interesting. Um, Okay, yeah, those labels can be difficult. I do talk a lot like on my Instagram and on my podcast about what I like. This is just like the Kelsey Moore nourishing pyramid, but I feel like it gives like a good idea, which I tend to run back to this pyramid that I wrote because every person that I talk to when it comes to food or meat, like trying to eat more meat, it just keeps aligning with it. And the bottom of my pyramid is always going to be eating enough calories. So in yours, from your perspective, it would just be like eat eggs because we know that eggs are
Yeah,
good for us, right?
right.
And then the second layer of that pyramid would be appropriate protein, carbs, and fats. So it's like, okay, are we eating the yolk with the whites, maybe not just eating whites, which is like a very
Yep.
like fitness industry thing, like cut the yolk
Yeah.
out, whatever.
Yeah.
So it'd be like having an appropriate ratio. And then at the top of my pyramid, it's going to be like those food sourcing convictions. So like, I feel like that answers the question on every end of the spectrum. Like if you don't have a lot of money, you don't have a lot of finances, or you don't live in an area where people like you can have fresh farm eggs, then it's like just eat eggs. That's my
Yeah.
argument, because you will get the most bioavailable vitamins and minerals
Right.
from meat in those sources.
Yeah.
Like they're so good for
It's
you.
an awesome food.
Yeah, awesome food. But if you can and you have the time and you care about the ethics and the environment, the top of the pyramid is like, no, like go meet your farmer, go talk to them
Right.
about it. So I
Yeah.
love that even, without even prompting you, you kind of like, talked
I
right
know.
into my pyramid. So that's good.
Sweet.
Yeah. Okay. So what is the timeline of having egg laying hens? I know there's like, it's the springtime, right? So I'm assuming there's a timeline. You got to pick them up. I have a Tractor Supply right by me. I don't know if
There you
this
go.
year is the year. I'm not sure. I need to
It
do
could
some
be.
building. I know. I need to
I
like,
know.
I know. So walk us through the timeline and
Okay.
what like I realistically need to be purchasing if that was something I was going to do.
Yep. So you get the baby chicks at your Tractor Supply or wherever you get them. Like I said, you're going to feed them that starter pellet. They're going to be, I don't think I mentioned this at first. They need a heat lamp. Did I? I don't think I talked about the
No,
heat
you
lamp.
didn't mention that, but
Okay. The
okay.
chicks need a heat lamp. I think I just assumed. So they need a heat lamp. You put it on one side of the brooder, which is, you can do anything for a brooder. Some people do kiddie pools. They do galvanized stock tanks. They do, I think some people do like wire dog kennels, whatever. Just keep them contained. You do one heat lamp on one side. That way they can go under there if they're hot. They can go to the other side with no lamp, and that tells you that, sorry, I mixed that up. That tells you that they're super hot. If they're under the heat lamp all cuddled up, that means they're cold. If they're just kind of sporadically roaming throughout, then they're fine. And then you move the heat lamp up each week lowering the temperature of the brooder. Once they're fully feathered, it depends on the breed. They probably don't need the heat lamp as much. They can go out into the coop. You might bring them back in at nighttime under the heat lamp. Some people do that. But once they're fully feathered, and there's a group of them, they can go out into the coop at nighttime. So that might take anywhere from 4 weeks to 8 weeks, I would say. And then at around 16 weeks, depending on the breed, some take up to 20, 21 weeks, they'll start laying eggs. And it might not be every single day at first, but they'll get that process going. They're kind of like a teenager at that point. We call them teenage birds when they're around 16 weeks. And actually, some stores do sell teenage birds that are already 16 weeks. If you're like, I don't want to deal with a
Mm-hmm.
brooder and a heat lamp and mixing water and all of that, you can actually buy teenage birds too that are close to starting to lay. So let's say you buy chicks in February. By June they're laying. They'll lay through the summer, and that's perfect timing for winter to come around. Gives them a nice little break, but they've been laying for a while, and that's part of the reason why chicks are popular right now. You'll see them everywhere, every store
Mm-hmm.
you go in right now.
Yeah, so many of my friends in this area have little chicks. So there's, one of my friends actually is already getting some eggs. So I don't. Maybe she started
Yeah,
early. Okay, yeah.
it's possible. So some stores, they keep chicks until October, November. I mean, you
Okay.
can get chicks year round. It's just popular right now because days are getting warmer, eggs are starting to lay. You still have winters a ways out, but some people, you're right, they do get chicks earlier on. It's just depending on where you live and what the weather's like, it might be easier certain times of the year than others to have chicks.
Okay. Okay. So if I were to get
Okay.
four chicks, okay, hypothetically, how big is there like a ratio of like, okay, per so many birds, like so many square feet in the coop? Do you have an idea of like how big am I
There
building this
there
thing?
probably is, but I honestly like when I had chickens, they they slept in their coop, but they were out roaming all day, so I never had
Mm-hmm.
to worry too much about it. You I will say too that a lot of the coops I see in farm and feed stores now seem so small. So a lot of those tiny ones that you see that are maybe they're the cheapest, they probably should only have two birds in them.
Okay.
So they need to have enough room that they can all be on the roost. They need to have enough nest boxes where at least there's one nest box per two or three birds max because you don't want them to be laying on the floor, cracking,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So that's the biggest thing. And then there should be a run area just in case you can't let them out during the day.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice that they still have an area that they can graze. Probably at least 2 to 3 square feet per bird, I would say, if I had to guess.
Okay.
But
Okay.
the coops might have a better measurement on the instructions.
Mm-hmm. So the option is get the automatic door, which I have other friends that have automatic doors, or let them out every day. That's pretty much the daily
Yep,
upkeep. And then is it just like weekly, you're changing out water? Is that daily? Like talk about the daily and weekly
yep.
chores.
So automatic doors are awesome. They're super easy, super nice to have. But some people, they don't want their chickens out. They literally live in their coop and that's it. And a lot of people, like if you are like me and you live in a neighborhood and have a small backyard, like if I let my chickens out and they hop over the fence to my neighbor's yard, I don't know what I would do. And they got eaten by a dog, like that would be very
Yeah.
unfortunate. So some people, they do just keep them in their coop and that's great for them. They have one big enough that the chickens have room to, walk around in there,
Mm-hmm.
scratch around everything. Um, and that's great. If you have a bigger one and you have room and like you want them to be out in the forest or out roaming, yeah, you probably should have a automatic door or at least
Mm-hmm.
like be diligent about locking them up every night because yeah, there's nothing worse than coming out and just seeing
Oh
feathers
gosh.
everywhere.
Yeah. That's
As
horrible.
I know. As far as like daily and weekly upkeep, though, it also depends on how many birds you have and the size of your coop. So if they're just living in your coop, you have four birds and they are living in your coop full time and they're never leaving that coop, you're probably going to need to be cleaning it more often than you would if they were going out during the day because they're going to be pooping in your yard, in your garden, in the forest, wherever that they're free roaming. And then they're also eating bugs, grass, things like that. So they might not be eating as much of the food that you're putting in the coop. On that note, some people do put the food and waters in the coop, and some don't. So if you're letting them out every single day, you can just give them food and water outside of the coop, and it just helps with rodents. So like
Mm-hmm.
mice will come in and eat all the chicken food sometimes. You get bugs, ants, things like that that love the chicken food. And if it's in the coop, then your coop's going to be infested with that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it sometimes it's easier just to have it in there just 24/7, just fill it up when it gets low and not have to worry about it. And then as far as like waterers go, it depends on what waterer you have. There's tons of different water systems. So you can get a gallon waterer that you probably have to fill up every couple of days. Or you can get a giant water. They have giant waterers that you might have to fill up so often. You can do a hose in a bucket or in a water that just has, I don't even know what it's called. Colby, what is that called? Like an automatic thing, like it knows when it's getting low and
Oh
it just
yeah.
keeps filling it up. I've seen some that have like drip nipples that just keeps the water super
Mm-hmm.
clean. That would be super nice to have because you don't have to worry about things getting in the water connected to a hose, so it's just constantly running. Just make sure you don't have like a leaky hose or anything that's leaking
Yeah.
at the other end. Um, and then yeah, you just fill up the food however often. So if they're just in the coop, like I said, they're going to need more food than they
Mm-hmm.
would if they're out roaming around. One of the great things about having chickens though is just giving them treats and snacks. So there's tons of different things that you can give them. Chicken scratch is what a lot of people do. It's not a complete feed, so you can't just fill up your feeder full of chicken scratch and expect them to be laying eggs. They need to have a good layer ration. Scratch is good. There's tons of different treats and snacks that you can throw out there. Mealworms, um, things that have like oyster shells and added calcium is always great
Mm-hmm.
too. Um, but the rule is 90% feed, 10% snack. So don't overfeed it, but some people do.
Yeah.
And then daily or weekly upkeep as far as like keeping the coop. You got to be careful because chicken manure does give off ammonia odors, and that can be a harmful respiratory issue for the birds if it gets to build up too much. And so some people use diatomaceous earth, lime, things like that in their coop, and that kind of helps with keeping moisture down, absorbing that ammonia odor, lengthening the bedding life, things like that. But you need to be careful because if you're going to do the deep litter method, it's going to dry out everything in there. And so your litter isn't going to be able to compost like it should if you have that drying agent in there. But it is nice to help repel like flies, bugs, lice, mites, things like that. And so, like I said, there's really a range that you can do depending how much upkeep you want to do for the litter and the manure. It can get stinky, but I mean, you can do it every single day. I've seen some people that have like the sand in their coops and they just go out every single day with one of those cat litter shovel scoopers
Mm-hmm.
and just pick up poop every single day, and their coop looks absolutely pristine, and I'm sure it doesn't smell nearly as bad as someone that just leaves it and once a week goes through it or does a deep litter method and it's constantly just
Mm-hmm.
building up. So
Okay.
it all depends.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I have three questions that popped up in my head while you were just
Okay. Okay.
talking. One, okay, so this is assuming that unless, which I know this is probably a loaded question, unless the egg laying hens are in an environment where they can roam the entire time, egg laying hens will always get supplemental feed. Is that true? Right?
Um,
Like because like at a home, a backyard hens, like they're gonna
yep.
need supplemental feed because they're not gonna get like enough food from just like pecking the ants on the ground or something,
No.
right? Is that
No.
okay?
So I would say all chickens need feed. I
Okay.
don't think because there's no way to really determine like so if they're just out living in your farm or your backyard and you're
Mm-hmm.
never feeding them, then how are they going to get enough calcium? How are they going to get all their different levels of things that might not be found,
In
in
that
ants and
environment.
grass?
That's true.
Right.
Okay.
So that's why the rations are developed to have the amount of protein that they need for
Mhm.
laying eggs, the amount of calcium that they need for laying eggs, things that are they might still lay an egg here and there if they're out they'll probably still lay
Yeah.
some eggs, but they're not going to be like the healthiest birds that are laying an egg every single day. They're going to
Mhm.
probably get egg bound. They're going to probably skip days. They're going to it's going to wear
Mhm.
down on their bones because they're not getting the calcium from their food, so they're going to
Mhm.
start taking it from their bones, things like that.
You know what, Shelby? Man, you're putting me on my soapbox here, which is good.
I love it.
You know what's crazy? I feel like I learn more about the human body when I get a better perspective of the human body when I talk to farmers. And the reason
Hmm.
why is because, like you said, the connection between diet and that fertility of that bird is so interconnected. And I
Hmm.
obviously work with so many women that have, fertility problems, or they have a hard time with like regulating their menstrual cycle or like body composition. And it's like, we live in this world where we're just like ignorant, that we think like, obviously we know like you are what you eat, like duh. But at the
Right.
same time, when you draw those distinct connections between, you know, in a perfect world, maybe chickens would be in a perfect environment where maybe they would get all of the nutrients they would have, and or maybe they would just, like you said, lay less eggs, which
Yeah.
would be normal. But in, like, Moore County, where it's like mostly sand and forest, they may not get that calcium they need, therefore they're going to lay less eggs. It's the exact same thing for humans. Like, if you're
Right.
not going to get those nutrients from the
Yes.
foods that you're eating, like, you will not be fertile. It's the same exact
Yep.
process. It's crazy.
Interesting.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, like I think that's like, if I could say why I'm so interested in this, it's because I think I learn more about the human body when
The
I talk
human
to
body.
farmers, which is interesting.
Yep.
Okay, the next thing I was gonna say was, oh, okay. Here in Moore County specifically, we're called the Sand Hills. So everything
Okay.
is sand.
Okay.
The foundation of everything is sand. And we are like infested with ants. So many ants. So when you were
Okay.
talking about having chickens, and maybe the ants or the bugs or the flies would go after the chicken feed, does it become a problem if my backyard is full of ants, or is it actually more positive because the chickens would eat the ants? Like, is it good or is it bad?
So, I mean, if you're completely infested with ants, then it's probably bad
Bad. Okay.
because, yeah, if the ants are just living in their feed, if you have a feeder and there's just like ants everywhere, the chickens aren't going to want it as much. You know what I mean? Like they'll eat
Hmm.
ants if they're out, just pecking around, scratching
Hmm.
around. But if their feed is completely like infested with it,
Hmm.
I don't know if that would
Yeah,
be the
I'd have
best
to figure that
situation.
out. Yeah, I'd have to figure that. But
So
keep talking. Sorry.
in that case, I would, just give them their food in the morning or in the night whenever you go out there to see them.
Hmm.
Watch it, see if the ants how fast they come before you just leave it out all day and all night for the week and
Hmm.
don't look at it and then they don't eat for a few days because it's completely infested. I don't know. I honestly never really had a huge issue with the ants. It
Yeah,
was
I
more
just
like
would need to
mice.
think about that. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we have mice, out like in the back with where the forest is at. That
Yeah.
I do have a lot of birds of prey back here, so I would have to.
Yeah.
That's another thing I'd have to figure out. The roofing, not the roofing, but the cover on the top. Like, if I were to even let them
Mm-hmm.
out during the day, I mean, they could be gone by lunchtime. So,
Right.
that
But
yeah.
if Scout was out there with them, I
Hmm.
mean, I don't know, would she like would she stick around them, do you think?
So that's my next question. Like, that's kind of what I'm thinking about, where it's like, in a perfect world, because I already have a livestock guardian dog.
Right. She
My
just
husband just says
is
I'm the
out there with her.
chicken. Yeah, like,
Yeah.
she's guarding me, like I'm the chicken,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But if I gave her chickens and she went out and guarded them, I think she would do an amazing job. She has incredible
Yeah.
instincts.
Right.
But at that point, I think she would become an outdoor dog, because, and I'm
Yeah.
like, personally, I don't know if my
You don't
heart
want
can
that.
manage it.
Yeah. That's the thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, just during the day, if you had them out and she was out there with them, I
Mhm.
don't think the birds would bother them if she was with them.
Mhm.
Even
Yeah.
so, what we did once when we had predator issues was we just got a turkey, this huge turkey that stayed out there, and we
Okay.
didn't lock him up. We didn't lock him up in the chicken coop, but he was huge and he was mean. But he wasn't mean to the chickens necessarily, but he was just a mean, scary
Mhm.
turkey. And he just stayed out all night, and we didn't have issues when he was out with them.
Okay. Yeah,
So
that's interesting. Yeah, my husband's gonna come home and I'm gonna have turkeys and chickens, and my dog's gonna be out living in the forest.
it's like, what just happened?
Watch out, bud.
Yeah.
Okay, so that kind of transitions me to my next question is, when you
Okay.
have chickens and you want to include, like, you want to be really diligent about including their manure and fertilizing your ground, in regards to just like having that. life cycle with them being involved in their ecosystem. Would in a perfect world, you would let your chickens out during the day and they would probably roam in a garden. I'm assuming, like in someone's backyard who had a garden. Is
Yeah.
there, right? Or do the
Yeah.
chickens then eat your vegetables? Like is that helpful or harmful?
Um, so this is another thing. We never really had a garden that had a ton of vegetables where our chickens were
Mhm.
ever going to be really an issue, but they probably would eat. Yeah, they would probably go after if you had like
They would eat the
fresh things.
vegetables.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. So then
Yeah.
okay, so I'm thinking like how in a perfect world, how do you incorporate animals and their manure to fertilize the ground
hmm
in
So you
a
have to be
backyard environment?
so you have to be careful of chicken manure too, because you don't want
Okay.
that going straight onto your tomato plant, for example,
Okay.
because who knows what's in that manure, and then you have
True.
that virus or issue in your tomato on your tomato. But this is funny you bring it up. So with my job,
Mhm.
we have found through our marketing research that a lot of the people that have backyard chickens also love gardening and they want to use the chicken manure in composting and gardening. So we came out with a product. It's called Coop to Garden that is specifically designed to break down chicken manure. So you just you collect it, you put it in your tumbler, your bin, your pile, however you're
Mhm.
composting. Um, and we have tons of info too on, it takes time. You add your
Mhm.
water to it, you add, whatever you need to, you tumble it, you let it go, and then you can put it on your garden. But you have to be careful that you don't just put fresh chicken poop straight on your
Yeah.
garden. But yeah, you definitely can. You can use it, and it's an awesome manure too. And you can use the bedding and everything. You just take everything from the coop and you put that in your manure pile. And the product that we came out with, it has similar technology as our silage inoculant, but it also has added prebiotics that help with breaking down the manure specifically. And then it has lemon and lime essential oils in it too to help it smell a little bit better.
I love it.
But they also have the oils do have antimicrobial properties
Mhm.
that help with the composting too. But yep, you can use your chicken manure to compost for sure.
That's so interesting. Okay, so what other products does your company sell? So
Okay.
prebiotics, probiotics, talk about that.
So we don't make a complete feed for chickens, but we
Okay.
have additives, supplements, refreshers, things like that. So we have a water additive. It's called Chicken Elixir, and it has added oregano essential oil, prebiotics, probiotics, electrolytes, vitamins, and added calcium. So you just shake it up, add um, 1 ounce to their water, and you can use that as a daily vitamin, like you would take your daily vitamin or probiotic, things like that. You can use it every single day from a day old chick to any age old hen. That's our top seller. And then we have a Coop refresher. It's called Coop Recuperate, and it's diatomaceous earth, yucca extract, lemongrass, and eucalyptus essential oil. So those oils also have the properties they have. They help with respiratory. So sometimes people have concerns about diatomaceous earth and respiratory issues.
Mhm.
Eucalyptus is great for respiratory issues. It smells amazing. It absorbs all that moisture. It lengthens your bedding life, helps with ammonia, things like that. And then we have two different treats. So we have one called Happy Tract, which is a gut health type of snack for the chickens, and it has cinnamon, thyme, and oregano essential oil. And then it also has prebiotics in that. You can just sprinkle it out as a treat or in between meals. And then we have Golden Graze, which is an egg quality laying hen snack that has added calcium, marigold petals. So what the marigold petals do is they eat them, and it helps with that golden orange yolk color that everyone loves. So if your chickens just live in their coop and they live in your backyard and they're not out
Mhm.
foraging, you can feed them golden grays and still have the golden orange yolk color. And that also has flax seeds for omega-3 fatty acids, which are, as you know, awesome for the eggs too. After the snacks, we have Preen Queen, which is a dust bath additive. So chickens love a good dust bath. Sometimes they make their own area of the coop and they make their own natural little dust bath. Some people, they put like a tire, a garbage can lid, a tin, something like that with sand or ash. And then you sprinkle Preen Queen on it, which has diatomaceous earth, zeolite, and peppermint and citronella essential oil. So that helps with lice, mites, keeping their feathers nice and clean. Sprinkle it in there. The chickens they love to dust bathe. it's their way of just cleaning themselves, and it's super cute. And then we have a product called First Peep, which is a non-medicated chick starter additive. So it's not a complete starter. You just mix it in or use it as a top dress for the starter. And that has the oregano essential oil, which has just super great immune qualities, helps with pasty butt, helps like as a natural dewormer, things like that. And then it has added kelp or seaweed in it and prebiotics. So just gets them eating right away. They love the aroma, things like that. And then we have a product called Flock Fixer, which is a vitamin and electrolyte rich water additive that has added oregano essential oil. And that one's designed for times of challenge. So heat stress, cold stress, molting, adding new birds to the coop, predator attack, things like that. Like just give them the extra boost they need to keep laying when they've had a stressful event. And then we have a product called Bye Bye Boo Boos, which is a wound care spray. It's made with lavender and tea tree essential oils. So those both have awesome properties, not just for chickens, but for any wound on your dog, on yourself, ringworm, cuts, scrapes, bleeding, if they're pecking each other and bleeding, if they have bumblefoot, if they have something weird going on in their comb, you could spray that on there. And then we have a baby chick care kit, which basically has our top two sellers. So it has a mini bottle of the chicken elixir, a mini box of Coop Recuperate, and then it has First Peep and then a baby chick success guide. And then we have our little tiny packs that go into a gallon of water of our electrolytes and vitamins that have thyme essential oil and prebiotics and probiotics with cinnamon essential oils. And I think that was all of them.
That's amazing. It's so
Yeah,
comprehensive.
it is. It's awesome. It does really well. And kind of like you mentioned in the beginning, our target audience in market has really been, backyard chickens, people that have like 50 chickens or less. So, I mean, and it's been booming with suburban customers. I mean, COVID is where it kind of all started. I think
Hmm.
people started buying chickens during COVID, and every year since it's been like record chick days after record chick days after record chick days year over year.
That's
So,
amazing.
yep.
Wow. Um, oh my gosh, there's so much more questions. Okay, one more.
Okay.
So to buy those products, does someone go to, is it advantageous for them to just to go to their local Tractor Supply, or are you a retail rep where people can contact you directly?
Uh, they can contact me, but I work mostly West Coast.
Oh, that's right.
But
Okay.
I'm happy to answer any questions and help them find somewhere where they can buy it. We do, if you go onto our website, have a store locator map, and it has all of the different farm and feed stores in your area that you can look up. You can also order it on Amazon, Chewy, through our e-commerce site online. Just it's getstronganimals.com, and you can press shop, and it's all on there too. So
Okay.
there's a lot of avenues that you can get it, but it's
That's
always good
amazing.
to support the farm and feed stores for sure, especially if you're already buying your chicks there and they
Hmm.
have it. It's just sometimes easier to get it there with it.
True. Well, I'll be texting you once I make my
Yes,
way down to
please
Tractor
do.
Supply,
That's
even
so
if it's
exciting.
not my year yet, because I need to like think about the coop situation and like, where I live.
Yep.
I might just mosey on down to Tractor Supply just to start
Just
preparing
check
my
it out.
mind. Yeah, just
Yep.
check it out. Take a
Yep.
picture of your products that are on the shelf there. Well, Shelby, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Do you have anything else that you want to share about the caring and keeping of chickens?
I don't know. I think we kind of covered it all, but if you think of something, let me know and
Yeah.
I'll try to come up with an answer for you.
Oh my gosh. Well, we might need a part two.
We
Actually,
might.
it's going to come. I'm going to get chickens. And when that
Okay, we'll do
happens,
a follow-up. Okay.
we'll do a
We'll do a
follow
part two.
up. Or I'll fly you out and we can, I can have you help me set it
We
all
can set
up.
it up. Yes.
Exactly.
That
Exactly.
would be awesome.
Yeah. Well, I'll talk to you offline, but I'll see if I can link that locator of
Yeah,
the
that'd
products
be
if I
great.
can.
Yep.
Even if somebody goes to their local farm and feed store, we can like link that for people on the podcast. I think that would be really
Yep.
helpful. Cool.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool.
Well, thank you so much, Shelby. I
Yeah, well,
appreciate
thank
you. I
you. This
miss
was
you.
fun. I know. I miss you too.
Okay, we'll
I hate
talk
that
soon.
we live all so far away.
I know. I know. We got to get back together and hike again
I know.
so I can
We
nag
do.
Colby too, so I can ask him more questions about cattle.
Yeah, you need to ask him those questions.
All right, thanks, Shelby. Have a
All
great
right,
rest of your
thank
day.
you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.